Let's freaking go. It is Razorback Live, or do I call it Hog Live? It's also an SEC live stream where we break down each and every game leading into what's going to be an unbelievable Thursday night. Obviously, the big game is Arkansas versus the Catamounts, right? Is that the nickname? The Catamounts? Ha. No, it is not the Catamounts. It is Western Carolina. I was getting confused with the Catamounts of Vermont. So smooth right there at the Open. And I was reading leading into this that they have the sixth best offense in all of the FCS. So I know a lot of you are worried about this Arkansas secondary going into this next season. What if this could be a squirrely game? What if this game could actually be close? I don't believe it. I think Arkansas is going to absolutely shellac them. But I want to talk about what is the big story going into this weekend. And it honestly has very little to do with the Razorbacks themselves. It has everything to do with the consistent debate of War Memorial Stadium or no War Memorial Stadium. Okay. Every single year it is brought up. Should the annual game remain in Little Rock? Now, because this isn't an only Arkansas channel, and there are a lot of my LSU folks that watch what we do, I want you to imagine if you're an LSU fan and every single season you were forced to take a game away from Tiger Stadium and play it in Lafayette or play it in the Superdome in New Orleans. And that is essentially what it is here. Okay, imagine if you're an Alabama fan watching this right now and you had to play a home game every year in Birmingham. Okay, that is basically how this whole thing is viewed. Okay. And we obviously have a bunch of young viewers like Kale. We have a little more older school viewers like David, who says all games should be on campus. And Kale says the facility is not it, just doesn't have a good atmosphere anymore. Okay. So I want to give this as many perspectives as I possibly can. Not being an Arkansas fan, but someone who played high school football in South Arkansas, right? And as someone who grew up with this game being such a big tradition, every year the game was the LSU game, or every other year the LSU game was in Little Rock, right? And that is a pretty marquee game, right? One of the, McFadden games was there. And then in the early 2011s is when the game started getting moved to Fayetteville, right? I think 2012 was actually the full first year that the game got moved to Fayetteville, the LSU one, and they started rotating some other games. And now the Little Rock game is a total afterthought. Now, as someone who has frequented both stadiums a good amount, probably not as much as quite a few Razorback fans, I think the Little Rock game should stay. Now, I totally understand that the opinion on this has moved towards the game no longer being in Little Rock. The games, all of them, all the home games being played in Fayetteville. Now, before Arkansas fans go crazy on me, what I want to do is share with you a clip that was shared from the Razorback football account earlier today on this topic.
It means everything coming from Fayetteville to play in War Memorial. I live in Southeast Arkansas, so like a lot of my family and friends don't get a chance to make the 4-hour drive up here.
You know, I played there since I was a real little kid. Every time you step on there in a different type of jersey, it just means the same. It might sound weird, but War Memorial, it just has a different smell to it. I don't know if it's a locker room or something like that.
When you see that War Memorial Stadium, like, you know, it's really business. It's like everybody in that town or in that city, they'll be at that game.
This is like the original Razorback Stadium, like everybody thinks about.
I remember as a kid, I didn't really just know about Donald W. Reynolds up here. It was all Woman Warriors.
Living in Little Rock, I know that I went to a lot of the games in Little Rock and South Fayetteville.
You see all Arkansas red, Hog fans, all that. It's just a live environment. It just means everything to us players. Then it means everything to the fans of Arkansas that come down and play in Woman Warriors and put on a show for our fans.
So, you see that it's more than just the facility, right? Arkansas's got obviously a few things similar with other schools, but it really makes them unique, right? You know, being an LSU fan, you still do have the Saints. You still do have the Pelicans. Arkansas, all you have if you're an Arkansan is the Travelers and Arkansas football. Now, Arkansas is home for a lot of great American Conference teams, and those football teams are fun to watch. But on a major scale, and don't give me the Arkansas Travelers, Arkansas doesn't have anything outside of the Razorbacks. So there is no school in the SEC, and really few schools at all, that have a stranglehold on their state that also is a major brand as the Arkansas Razorbacks, right? The issue, though, is the school is located in the northwest corner of the state, right? You know, it's a weird dichotomy, if you will. And Arkansas also isn't a rich state by any stretch of the imagination. Now, it's very wealthy in the northwest corner, but to go to a game in Donald W. Reynolds is very expensive, right? And you heard Malik Chavis talking about the locality of playing a game in Little Rock. So I like the Little Rock game. I do, right? I know David Basil, who obviously does radio every day in Little Rock. And for those that aren't familiar, he does this huge Little Rock Touchdown Club luncheon every week in Little Rock. Okay. So, you know, this major event, and I think they have Peyton Manning next week. They have these huge speakers, and it's in the central portion of the state, 3 hours away from, you know, where the school is. And it's all Razorback. Okay. Obviously, there's a lot of people that have a historical tie to, you know, the tailgating that happens at Little Rock games. Yes, everything is worn off of the Little Rock tradition. A lot of it has. My friends used to make it a big deal. Everyone used to make it a big deal if you're in the southern portion of the state. But because the games now are relegated to FCS opponents, and it's, you know, kind of looked as an afterthought, and as Cole brought up, or Kale, Kale the Whale brought up, it is in a stadium that is not a state-of-the-art facility. I get wanting all the games to be in Fayetteville. But let's be honest. There is still an advantage of playing the games in Little Rock. There is still an advantage. Now, I know there are some sour memories of the Little Rock game. Of course, Toledo pulled off the upset in Little Rock. But keep in mind, this is a game where Ryan Mallett sealed the Sugar Bowl for you guys. So, you know, that building has seen, you know, the Miracle on Markham and so on and so on. It's still a thing, right? It is a unique thing, but let's not act like, you know, if you're an Arkansas Razorback fan, that there aren't any benefits of playing the game in Little Rock, right? And I kind of like that it's one of these afterthought games because it makes the ticket cheaper for people to get in. Now, I haven't checked the ticket prices, but still. And I will not be attending. My wife actually might make the long trip up there to go, but I won't. So best of luck to all the security staff and all the Arkansas Razorback staffers that are fielding calls. Why are we still playing this game here? I love it. I do. I really, really do. I like the uniqueness of it and so on and so on. Now, here's another side of it that I know a lot of you Arkansas fans are going to bring up. Well, you don't get it. As an LSU fan, you're spoiled. All your games are in Baton Rouge. And this is the point that you guys could make that I have no retort to is that you are bound to playing a game in Little Rock. What is it? Every other year? It's not every year, it's every other year, right? And you're also bound by contract to keep playing these games in Jerry's World, right? The Arkansas Texas A&M game. And I get it. Especially as an Arkansas fan, you should be pissed off that in 2020 A&M got to host that game and you don't get an A&M visit to Fayetteville. I get it. I'd be pissed off about that too. But understand that, Jerry Jones is rich. So, I hate it. I think 2025 will be the final year, as Kale points out. But feel free, Arkansas fans. This is a channel. This show is for you. Now, I want to get into a few other topics. I think Arkansas is going to roll. I don't see Arkansas having any issues. When you have a really good quarterback, this warm-up game is obviously a really good thing if you are an Arkansas Razorback fan. Something else I would say as an Arkansas fan, and I want to show this to each and every one of you yet again, last year's schedule, you had no for sure wins on the schedule. You had Missouri State as your weakest team, and they were coached by Bobby Petrino. And your other non-conference games were BYU all the way in Utah. You had, obviously, Cincinnati, a really good team. And who was the other non-conference game? BYU, Cincinnati, and Liberty, who beat you. So now you get a softer schedule, and this is as good as you could have probably asked for, right? A lot of SEC teams this year have really soft openings, and Arkansas is definitely one of them. And you're going to get BYU in week 3 on a down year, I believe, for BYU. This should set up really nicely. This very well could be a very special season for Arkansas. Okay. Now, the next thing I would say when you look at the team and you look at Arkansas going into next year, if you guys saw earlier this week, we did a deep dive on my 5 locks of the year. And one of my 2 favorite plays is Arkansas over their 6.5 win total. You start 3-0. I think KJ can win you 4 more games, right? I think you could find a way to win 4 more games. I think Mississippi State's going to be down. I think you got a good shot to beat Florida. If everything breaks your way, you could beat LSU in Tiger Stadium. Probably unlikely there. Because LSU is going to have a really good freaking team this year. So, yeah, it could be a very special season for Arkansas. I actually have them at 7-5 right now. And I'm leaning towards 8-4. So there you go. Now, I want to get into all the SEC games this weekend. Okay. And I think for me, the big thing, if I look at this, because look, let's be honest, the Arkansas game is not one I want to spend too much time on. We're going to be spending a lot of time, obviously, on Arkansas games in the near future. Okay. Now, if you take a look at the SEC as a whole, you have a lot of games coming up not too far away, right? You have this game against Florida. I'd say against Florida. You have Florida versus Utah coming up. And look at this. Utah actually moved up a point here. Cam Rising is out. You get a 44.5 point total here, and the game kicks off at 7. And then you also have a game kicking off here, Missouri and South Dakota. Missouri for the second consecutive year, kicking off on a Thursday. Missouri versus South Dakota. Why not take Missouri covering the 27? Okay. Now, take a look at all these other games, and as you'll see, Kentucky, they always play the softest openers, 26-point spread versus Ball State. I actually like Ball State to cover there. Kentucky's never really good in that spot. Tennessee, 27.5 versus Virginia. Virginia made a really bad coach hire. As you see, Western Carolina and Arkansas really doesn't have a point spread. Mercer and Ole Miss doesn't really have a point spread. You have UMass versus Auburn. This is a UMass team that gave Texas A&M some difficulties last year, 51.5 the total. And this is not what you want to see if you're an SEC fan, right? This is part of the reason why I want a 9-game conference schedule, because you're going to see a lot less of these warm-up games, right? Southeastern versus Mississippi State, Tennessee Martin versus Georgia, Vanderbilt, Alabama A&M, New Mexico, who I think was the worst team in college football last year, 38.5. I'm actually leaning towards Texas A&M covering that. North Carolina, 2.5 versus South Carolina. Alabama, Middle Tennessee. I actually think Middle Tennessee to cover. I think Alabama will take the foot off the gas in that second half. And then, of course, you got the big one, LSU versus Florida State, 2-point spread there. Okay. Kale doesn't believe y'all are going to beat Mississippi State this year. You don't believe? Oh, come on, Kale the Whale. Come on, Kale the Whale. I'll be real. All right. I love SEC football. I do. But when I see things like that, it makes me wonder, why don't we just go to a 9-game conference schedule? Why don't we just do it? I understand from an Arkansas perspective, you don't want that, because it's a lot harder to get to that 6-game threshold to get to a bowl game. But if that's the case, if we can get better football, make the threshold to make a bowl game 5 games. And I've always said this, bowl season, I don't really care if you're 6-6 or 5-7. I understand. Well, we shouldn't reward teams with a losing record. We do that in the NBA. I mean, it's not the be-all, end-all. And I see this all the time. People say that, and then at the same time say, well, bowl season is just an exhibition game. Bring on the 9-game conference schedule. Bring on a 5-win threshold to go to a bowl game. Okay. Look at Kale the Whale. I know he's a Power Hour SEC viewer. It'll be your 8th straight week of playing while they're going to be rested, coming off a bye. They'll be way better in that spot. True, and that'll be Arkansas coming off 4 consecutive road games, 3 against top 15 recruiters, and the other is Lane Kiffin. So yeah, Mississippi State very well could be a loss, right? Especially if you have some injuries in that spot. And then, of course, you get the bye week and you get a very favorable schedule for the rest of the way. And look, if you are an Arkansas fan, we'll probably not go too long tonight. Because I know some of you want to watch the Florida game. I'm definitely going to want to watch some of that. What I would say is you don't want to not watch this Florida game because you play them this year, right? You have got to play Florida off your bye week, and you have to go to Ben Hill Griffith, right? And the last time you went there, Sam Pittman couldn't coach because he had the Rona. Now, if you guys can, please give a like and a subscribe. I'm missing out on my niece's tennis match to be with you. I thought opening night of the SEC was well worth hanging out with you guys today. I think for me, as I look at, the Florida game tonight, I took a lot of heat for my video I posted yesterday because I mistakenly said Britton Covey played for Utah last year. And technically he did because the Rose Bowl was in 2022. But no, he wasn't with Utah last year. So my apologies. But the point still remains the same. I believe Florida is in a world of trouble tonight. I think Florida loses tonight by at least 10. I like Utah in the spot. I hate SEC teams on the road in season openers. Now, the total is really low at 44. I actually do like Utah covering tonight. And the line's already gone up to 5. So take that for what it's worth. I do think Florida eventually becomes decent. And I do think Arkansas gets Florida at kind of a tough spot. I think a lot of these teams that have new coaches, new staffs, new transfers, new players, like LSU last year, it takes a while for them to get going, right? And I think with, Billy, new transfer quarterback, new defensive coordinator, it's going to take a while for that offense to get moving. So I do like Utah. I do like Utah tonight. So bring me your best plays for this weekend. It's kind of hard to really have a play because so many of those games just do not have point spreads because it's nothing. Now, what I would like to hear from each and every one of you, do you believe LSU will beat Florida State? Let me know in the comment section below. LSU or Florida State, and what should be the game of opening week. I know North Carolina, South Carolina is going to be sexy. I actually do like North Carolina in that spot. And I'm also liking LSU. Okay. I know I got my Power Hour LSU logo in the top right corner of the screen. I was supposed to take that down. But I do like LSU. I do like LSU to win this game on Sunday. I don't feel comfortable about it because Florida State's obviously a really good football team. And I also like the over. I do. I like the over in this matchup there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and keep these, Thursday night live streams to about 30 minutes. But if you have any other questions, feel free to fire them in. I don't mind going an hour. I don't mind. You guys let me know. So Richard believes LSU over Florida State. There you go. Yeah, obviously, the full-time gig, obviously I spend most of my time breaking down LSU Florida State stuff. And I just think LSU last year did not have their best players picked out to play in that game. They had the wrong center, the wrong right guard, the wrong right tackle, the wrong running backs, honestly. They also had one of the wrong starting linebackers. But other than that, well, special teams is also a disaster. But other than that, they played well. So I think LSU is going to be better prepared. I also think Florida State's going to have a better team. And I could see both of these teams still making it in the playoff. I could see both of these teams still finishing in the top 10. So, yeah. I also could see, kind of like LSU was last year, I could see LSU lose the season opener and still make the playoff after losing to another SEC team, if that makes sense, right? Because, look, I do think, obviously in a year this won't even be a talking point, but I do think a 2-loss SEC team, if they win the conference, can still get in. I do. Now, Skipper, of course, FSU loses to LSU. There you go. I love it. Now, next thing I want to get into, I want to talk to each and every one of you. All right. This is the last year you're going to get to enjoy college football as it is. It's the last year. Enjoy it. Soak it in. Because these season opening weeks are never going to be the same. Never. Okay? LSU Florida State, even though you could still lose and get into the playoff, with a 14 playoff, you don't feel that at all, right? You feel like, God, we really got to win every other game now. But in a 12-teamer, if LSU were to lose to Florida State and lose 2 more games, they are probably still getting in a 12-team format. So I want you to enjoy this final season of this variation of college football, because obviously times are changing with NIL, the portal, conference realignment, and everything else surrounding this glorious sport that we love. Okay? So there you go. Now, if you guys want, I can show you some of the YouTube comments I actually get on some of the other videos that I do. Let's see. The Florida Gators. Yeah, I got absolutely roasted yesterday. Absolutely roasted. Let's see. I kind of want to do an angry comments. Good. I finally had someone pick Utah with me. Who do y'all think wins tonight, Utah or Florida? I got the wrong thing pulled up. Give me your honest opinion. These weren't as bad as I thought they were. Oh no, some of them I think got wiped off. Okay. No, these weren't too bad. I thought they were worse. I thought they were. Let me see. All right, guys. I'm going to sign this one off. I'm excited to watch Florida versus Utah tonight. Don't forget, Arkansas fans. On Saturday, it's the only War Memorial game. It's the only one. I'll talk to you soon. It is Power Hour SEC. Bam! And tonight we are doing lemon pepper chicken wings. No, it's barbecue night 2. Let's go. Let's